Welcome, friends and fiends, to another episode of the Castle of Spirits True Ghost Stories podcast. I am the Ghost Keeper, Jane.
And I'm the Ghost Keeper, Vince.
That's right. And, you know, friends, there's one thing that Vince and I love almost more than we love ghosts.
You're not going to tell them.
I'm going to tell them.
Oh, boy.
Can you guess what that thing might be? Wrong. No, not you already know.
I have a
that
guess.
guy over there guessed, and it's wrong.
Oh.
We love pizza.
Oh, yeah, pizza.
It's our favorite.
Are we getting one again tonight?
No.
Oh.
In fact, we love pizza so much that long before we were the ghost keepers at the castle, Vince and I wanted to do a podcast where we discussed paranormal activities. And one of the podcast titles that we came up with was Paranormal Pizza.
Yeah.
Because our gimmick was going to be that we were going to talk about scary stuff and we were going to present it like a pizza. Because that sounds like a really cool podcast idea, right? No, that's why it didn't happen. However, this episode is Paranormal Pizza because we have had a new story submission since we recorded our last episode. It mentions pizza. Turns out we have 2 pages of stories in the castle that use the word pizza in them. So we decided to make a theme of it. It will probably happen more than once. So welcome to Paranormal Pizza Part 1.
Yeah, and if anybody out there has ever experienced something paranormal while having pizza,
that would be even better.
Cooking pizza, delivering pizza, having pizza delivered, or just thinking about pizza. Tell us your story. Yeah. I want to hear more of these, but we got some really cool ones. And one of the first ones we have is a brand new story. It comes from Norm in California, submitted in June of 2024. This one's called, I'm excited about this one, it's called Pizza Delivery Ghost Horror Story.
Oh boy, I haven't read this one, so I have no idea what's coming.
Well, just get your pizza pants on and
my pizza pants?
Be prepared to.
I would love to have a pair of pants that had like little pizzas all over them.
We can get like a shirt that has pizzas all over it, but
yeah, and I would like that as well.
And sometimes
I need like a pizza leisure suit.
Well, sometimes when I have pizza, I get a shirt with pizza all over it. It didn't start that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, anyway.
Anyway, read your story.
Back to the story. Pizza Delivery Ghost Horror Story. I live and work in Silicon Valley. The San Francisco Bay Area is one of the most expensive places to live in the country, which is why I work for a tech company by day, but moonlight as a pizza delivery guy by night. That is, until recently. After the experience I had, I'm now looking for a less terrifying side hustle. The night was hot and the pizza was flying fast and furious. I'd just come back from a 5 pizza delivery run and it was after 10:30. I was about to clock out when my boss pulled me aside and said we had one last order. She asked me if I could take it since the other delivery guy had already gone home. She told me there was a guaranteed extra tip, and because I'm more broke than I was tired, I agreed. There was just one catch. The house I was delivering to was in a rundown section of East Palo Alto. If you don't know anything about that area, East Palo Alto is generally pretty sketchy. But being as I needed the money, I sucked it up and got back in my car for one last pizza run. The house I was delivering to was located at the dead end of a street lined with cars. The only street light in sight was out. Most of the houses on the street had their front porches lit up, but there wasn't a single light on at the house where my delivery was taking me. As I pulled up, I took a long look out my windshield and double-checked that I had the right address. The place looked abandoned. More than that, it looked straight up like a haunted house, complete with upstairs front windows that looked like eyes and a front door like a closed mouth before it opens up and eats you alive. The yard was overgrown with weeds and there was a huge tree that loomed over the house. I almost said the hell with this and drove off. Almost. But after taking a few deep breaths and gathering up my nerve, I picked up the pizza box, got out of my car, and approached the house. I nearly biffed it when my foot hit a cracked piece of sidewalk, and I practically had to stoop under a long tree branch to get to the front door. There was no doorbell that I could see, so I knocked 3 times and waited. I expected the front porch light to come on or for some light inside the house to come on, but it stayed dark. I waited for about a full minute before knocking again, this time harder. Still nothing. I was about to turn around and leave when I heard movement on the other side of the door. It sounded like someone was standing up against the door trying not to be heard. I figured maybe they were afraid to open the door or something, so I cleared my throat and said, "Pizza delivery." I heard what sounded like a voice, but I couldn't understand what was said. Then I heard the sounds of someone fumbling with the lock on the other side of the door. I took a step back away from the door and waited as the knob began to turn and the door slowly opened. At first, I couldn't really pinpoint what it was about the person who opened the door that was so unusual. He was an older guy, probably around 60 or 70, with gray hair and thick glasses. There was nothing otherworldly about him, nothing at all to indicate that he was anything but what he appeared to be. Still, when I looked at him, I got an uneasy feeling. I held up the pizza box and told him that I had his delivery. He looked at it like it was something he wasn't expecting. He didn't say a word, but just nodded and turned around like he was going to get his wallet. The door fell slightly closed, and he disappeared from my sight. I waited and waited, but he didn't come back. I listened and heard nothing. I realized that I hadn't heard him walk away, and I thought maybe he was just standing behind a door or something. Growing frustrated, I tried to peek my head around to see in. I didn't see anything but darkness, so I decided to push the door inward slightly. I said, "Hello?" But there was no reply. I finally got so impatient that I pushed the door open all the way and called out again. I saw a completely empty front room. Not even a single piece of furniture. It was entirely dark, and I couldn't see any farther beyond. I listened for another minute before a sudden creepy feeling fell over me, and I backed slowly away. The house was completely empty. There wasn't a sound to be heard. I'd finally had enough and turned around, almost nailing my head on the low-hanging tree branch and practically running to my car. I didn't once look back to see if there was any activity in the house, and I threw the pizza onto my passenger seat and got the hell out of there, not quite sure exactly why I was so freaked out, but just giving in to my instincts. My boss was pissed when I came back to the restaurant with the pizza. She asked me why I hadn't called the number on the order to see if I had the wrong house, and I admitted I hadn't even thought of it. That's how freaked out I felt. She went to the phone to dial the number herself, and then put the phone back down with a confused face. "It's not in service," she said. I was still creeped out by the time I got home, and I couldn't sleep, so I decided to look up the address online. First, I found it on Google Maps and confirmed it was the house where I'd been. Then I Googled the address, along with the name on the order. What I found scared me so much that I almost cried, and I called into the pizza place the very next day and quit. As it turned out, the house had been empty for years. Its last resident was a man who was questioned on suspicion of some child disappearances in the area back in the 80s. The article went on to say that the man had killed himself in his home not long after being questioned and let go, the assumption being that the cops were onto him and this was his way of escaping punishment. Although the police never found any evidence in the house to the crimes he was suspected of, it was pretty much assumed by everyone that he had kidnapped and murdered 3 children in the area, and that there were probably a lot more. I couldn't find any pictures of the man online, but something tells me that if I had, I would have seen the same face I saw in the doorway of that house. I believe that what I saw was a ghost, and that even though the man I saw might have escaped justice, he's clearly not resting in peace. I just hope his victims are, and that they aren't also stuck in that house with him. Oh, and thanks to Norm in California, June 2024, for submitting that true paranormal ghost story called Pizza Delivery Ghost Horror Story.
Yeah, that was dark. It was a good story. But I have a question, a very important question that I feel like Norm could have addressed.
Okay.
I need to know what happened to the pizza.
Yeah. What happens when you go to deliver a pizza? Because I've never worked at a pizza joint. I should.
No, you don't want to see how the hot dog's made.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you were reading, he said that he threw the pizza into his car. I thought he was going to say that he threw it down on the ground. And I was like, a bunch of savages in this town.
That reminds me of that time we were driving down the street and we watched somebody throw a pizza out the window.
A whole pizza, box and all.
Yeah.
The whole thing.
We didn't see the toppings, right? It stayed closed.
There might have been pineapple on it. That's the only reason I can find to justify tossing a pizza out of a car window.
Yeah, and Norm, what kind of pizza was it also? Because I want to know what the ghost of a dead serial killer.
What do they order?
What did they order? Was it something like what?
Buchovies.
Buchovies? I love it.
Pepperoni. And Goolives.
Goolives is olives.
Yeah.
And a side of dead sticks.
And the cheese is mozzarella.
All right. That's enough. That's enough. Now I'm hungry. I'm always hungry.
I know. This episode's really going to make me want to eat pizza. Speaking of pizza, I have a story.
You do?
I do. I wouldn't say it's about pizza, but the word pizza is in the story.
That's good enough for me.
All right. This story is a very eerie experience, and it was submitted by Anonymous in New South Wales, Australia, October 1998. My experience actually began about 8 weeks ago. Today is Sunday, the 27th of September, and 2 weeks ago, I had my second encounter. I live in an outback NSW town called Griffith, where I deliver pizzas part-time for a pizza restaurant. To set the scene, I will describe the setting where I had my encounters. One of the streets I travel often is called Taylor Road. It runs from west to east and terminates at a T-section with Sidlow Road, which runs from south to north. I always turn left at the T-section and drive for 200 meters north to another T-section with a street called Marigold, which also runs from west to east. On the other side of Marigold Street are the grounds of Griffith High School. I turn right at this T-section. About 8 weeks ago, at about 9:20 p.m., I was 50 meters from Marigold Street when I noticed a large black dog running toward me along the edge of the grass section of Sidlow Street. Its eyes picked up my headlights and shone with a green glow. As I slowed to make my turn into Marigold, it raced past the car on the left. I did not take that much notice of it that time, though. Sunday evening, 2 weeks ago, I was returning from a delivery by that way again. It was 7:25 p.m. and very dark because the sky was overcast. I had just made the turn onto Sidlow from Taylor when I saw the dog again running along the edge of the grass area towards me. Once again, its eyes glowed an eerie green in my headlights. I was just increasing speed when suddenly it veered straight towards my car and appeared to run straight under my front wheels. I braked hard, knowing nothing could save the dog. To my surprise, there was no bump or yelp of pain. I stopped the car and got out to investigate. As soon as I got out, the hair on the back of my neck rose and a feeling of extreme apprehension hit me. I grabbed my torch and walked around to the left of my car, but there was no sign of a dog. We've had a lot of rain, and the soil at the side of the road was soft, but there were no paw prints. By this stage, I was in a cold sweat, and every instinct screamed at me to get out of there. I raced around to the driver's side, got in, and drove. I shook for hours after, and nothing will induce me to go around that road at night again. Thinking back later, what really shook me was the aura of menace I felt when I got out of the car. This is my story. I did not believe in ghosts until this experience. I still can't make sense out of it. I just know I have this terrible feeling of fear whenever I drive past the spot in the daytime. So thank you again to Anonymous in New South Wales, Australia, in October of 1998 for submitting a very eerie experience. And Vince, I have to tell you that I have a theory about this story. It was a black dog. Well, black dogs are known in, folklore and mythology and whatever to be harbingers of bad luck. Hellhounds coming to take you to the afterworld, that they signify some kind of a death or whatever. But clearly, this person did not die. There are also stories that black dogs can be there to kind of help people. It's even mentioned there's a Wikipedia article about black dogs in folklore. And it mentions that some dogs, in some cultures, they believe that black dogs can be guardians, especially for travelers at night. So it's possible that this dog was protecting Anonymous in New South Wales from getting into some kind of an accident up the road, right? The dog runs out in front of the car, doesn't hurt the person, doesn't damage the car, doesn't hurt the dog, but it stops the person from continuing on their path. They stop their car, they get out, they're spending time at that intersection, and now they're going to miss getting in whatever kind of trouble they might have gotten in up the road, whether it was a wreck or hitting a real dog or whatever. So I thought maybe that's the explanation.
Yeah, Anonymous there will never know what may have happened if that hadn't happened. And
exactly.
It was written as if it were a really bad experience or something. But first of all, anything with a dog involved, unless it bites you, I think is a good experience.
And even then, maybe.
Even then.
Yeah, I mean, when you don't understand something, it's scary, and if you come across an ethereal dog who's clearly not there, it's scary. You don't know, what its purpose is or why it was there, but it doesn't mean necessarily that it had nefarious intent. I mean, nothing happened. I mean, it was scary, but I choose to believe that it saved Anonymous from a worse fate down the road.
I also think that it may have inspired the Forrest Whitaker movie that came out the next year called Ghost Dog, The Way of the Samurai.
No.
Remember that one?
Yes, I know that movie. It was a Jim Jarmusch movie, and I'm quite a Jim Jarmusch fan. That was not my favorite.
But it's called Ghost Dog.
Yeah, I know. But he was really just like a samurai who didn't speak.
It should have just been...
I think he didn't speak. If he spoke, it was very little.
Very monosyllabic. But it was spelled D-O-G, not D-A-W-G. So it was Ghost Dog, not Ghost Dog.
Ghost Dog. Anyway,
that had nothing to do with it.
Anyway, it was not a fabulous movie. So are we starting our second podcast right now, talking about movies?
No.
We may, guys. We're
may
thinking
yet do
about
that.
it. Starting a movie podcast. Because if there's 3 things in this world that we love, it's pizza, movies, and ghosts.
And dogs. So there's 4 things.
And dogs. There's 4 things in this world that we really love.
And all 4 of them have seeped their way into this episode today. So I'm particularly thrilled by that. But I'm not thrilled that we're not having pizza tonight because we had it yesterday.
Hey, Vince.
Yes.
Speaking of pizza.
Oh?
Do you have another story to read to us?
Oh, I thought she was changing her mind. She was going to say, let's eat pizza again.
No.
I do have a story to share with you.
I want to hear it.
And it does stick with the theme of pizza.
That's really clever. See how we did that?
This particular story, it freaks me out a little bit.
Yeah, I like that.
This one was submitted in July of 2003 by Benjamin Sanchez in Illinois. And it's called The Shadow Hand. Well, this happened a while ago, about 5 years ago. Anyway, I was invited to one of my brother's best friend's birthday party. I've never been there before, so I was interested in all the stuff my brother's best friend promised me he'd show me. He was going to show me some vintage records from John Lennon, so I followed him with my brother in front of me up to his room. This room was in the attic of his house, and as soon as we walked up the stairs, I felt strange, as if someone were standing behind me. Once we reached his room, he turned on the light. As I listened to my brother and his friend talk, I felt the presence again behind me. I looked out the corner of my eye, and by my arm, on the armrest, was a shadow hand reaching to grab my arm. I thought it was something in my eye, but it wasn't. I looked at it for 3 seconds and freaked out. I just stood up and yelled, "What the F was that?" They asked me what was wrong, and I told them that I'd seen something, but I didn't know what it was. A few days later, my brother had a chat with his friend about what I'd seen. My brother's friend said that a few times his pizza delivery man had asked him who that woman was staring out the window every time he delivered his pizza. He said he didn't know what to tell him other than that he'd never seen anything there himself. My brother's friend said that he investigated his house's history, and he came across an article in the newspaper in the 70s that said a woman had committed suicide by hanging herself in the house's attic. I couldn't believe it when my brother told me. I felt chills up and down my spine all over again. And that was The Shadow Hand by Benjamin in Illinois, July of 2003.
You know what's really interesting, Vince?
Yes.
I have one more story to read, and it's from the point of view of the pizza delivery guy.
In this story?
In that story.
No.
No, it's not. I wish.
That would have been too cool.
That would have been super cool.
Now, the one thing that stuck out at me.
It stuck out at you. It's all
like
poking you in the face.
Yeah, like a poke in the eye. The thing that struck me about that story was the POV of the pizza delivery guy that's told at the end there. This guy delivers pizza, apparently on a regular basis, to this guy's house, enough to be in conversation with him.
There's no shame in that. We know how that goes.
Right, exactly. And he says, "Who is that creepy woman who's always at the window?" It actually reminds me of a story that I wrote.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
In our Shadows on the Page book.
In fact, when he was talking about, who's that woman always looking out the window, I immediately pictured the painting that I did for that story.
Right. Yeah, Jane and I did a couple of books, Shadows on the Page and more Shadows on the Page, featuring my words and her artwork. You should check it out. There's a link in the show notes, or just go to shadowsonthepage.com. Anyway, there's a story there that is kind of reminiscent of that, although there's no pizza involved. So I think maybe this story was better.
Yeah, I think you could go back and rewrite that story, though. We could release like a new special edition.
The pizza edition. The Paranormal
Maybe we can
pizza,
find a way to put pizza in every story. That's right. And then we'll change the name of the book to Paranormal Pizza. It's full circle. We're coming full circle here.
Or instead of Shadows on the Page, call it Pizza on the Page.
Shadows on the Pizza.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we're onto something here. But as speaking as being onto something, what about you? Do you have another story?
Oh, you ruined it.
What did I ruin?
I was going to segue again. Speaking of pizza.
Anyway, but we already are. So
okay, but let me just do it anyway. Okay. Speaking of pizza.
Oh yeah.
I have another story that deals with pizza.
No way.
I do. This is at Mom's house, and it was submitted by Timothy in California, USA, September of 1999. This story is very true, but it happened to my father-in-law. When he was a boy of 13, he and his family lived in what I believe is one of the most haunted houses in my town. One night, his parents were going out for the evening, and his older brother was going out also. So he was going to spend the evening alone at home. So his mother told the brother to get him a pizza for his dinner. He was sitting at the dining room table, eating his pizza, when he heard a noise that sounded like breathing coming from the corner. He closed his pizza box and looked around, and seeing nothing, he sat down and started to eat again. Again, the breathing started. Feeling somewhat scared at this point, he looked around and saw no one but himself. Hearing the breathing louder again, he picked up his pizza and went outside to wait for his parents. When they pulled up and saw him outside at such a late hour, they asked him why he was out there. He said, "Mom, the wall was breathing." With that, she turned to his father and she said, "I told you." Thank you again to Timothy in California, USA, for submitting At Mom's House, September of 1999.
Dude, what the hell?
I know. The little punchline at the end. Like, I was reading it, and I was like, it's a kid eating pizza, freaking himself out, home alone for the first time. But when Mom turned to Dad, "I told you." Yeah. That did it for me. I was like, "Oh, I'm absolutely reading this."
That was
story.
absolutely terrible. But there was also something I really liked about the story is that
He takes the pizza with him.
he takes the pizza with him.
Exactly.
Smart kid.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know what he's doing now because that was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know what the hell a wall has to do to be breathing.
Right?
I'm envisioning, again, I think house 3 or was it house 4?
Oh, with the pizza?
Well, yeah.
That's house 4.
Right, with the pizza.
That is the best scene in any of the House movies. Vince had never seen House 4 before. And I was always telling him about this pizza scene. So we had to watch it.
I have to say that it did not make me want to eat pizza.
No, that's the most unappetizing pizza I've ever seen in a movie.
Next to Pizza the Hut in
Pizza the Hut
Spaceballs.
kind of makes me gag. But I love the punchline to that scene.
Which is?
There.
Remind me.
There, no more anchovies.
That's right. I remember that. now.
Oh, that scene is so hilarious. And now I'm going to have that song stuck in my head.
Well, look in the show notes, and if I am able to find a YouTube video of that scene,
Oh, yeah, that scene is on YouTube. Yeah,
I'll share it in the show notes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah. You should just watch House 4 anyway. See, here we go. We're talking about movies again. We
ought to do a movie podcast.
We should do a movie podcast.
No, in addition to this,
Because
not in place of Castle of Spirits.
We know about movies AF, man.
We sure do. I know what I like, and I like what I know. So
Yeah.
there you go.
Anyway, so friends, what are your favorite movies about pizza?
And ghosts.
And ghosts. Yeah. Does there have to be a pizza and a ghost? Because the only one I can think of is House 4.
I heard of a movie when I was doing my research today called Pizza.
No.
It was apparently a horror thriller film from 2012.
Oh, 2012? I was hoping for a cheesy, see what I did there, 1980s flick.
Well, I think there were, I mean, if you look, there's plenty of pizza horror movies to be found, I believe. And if not, maybe that's a new genre that could be a subgenre that should be invented and deeply explored.
Yeah.
I mean, if I had $1 million, I'd produce movies.
You'd make a horror pizza movie?
I'd produce movies with $1 million.
Yeah.
I'd be the Roger Corman of like video, straight to video type movies. Like he made $1 million stretch over a dozen movies. He's a genius.
Okay.
Give him a Razzie. Anyway.
So, hey, Vince.
Yes.
Speaking of pizza.
Oh?
Yes. I
Here it comes.
can hear the music coming down the hall.
Oh, man. I thought you were going to say that speaking of pizza, we're going to get one tonight. I keep expecting that.
No. We had pizza last night, but
Yeah, but I want pizza tonight.
Okay, well, then you can go hang out with the ghosts because that's what they want for dinner tonight, and they shall not be denied.
All right,
So,
fine.
You go hang out with the ghosts.
No, it's
and-
okay. I'm going to eat
Yeah, I
the tuna
didn't-
salad just like a good boy.
I didn't think you'd be into that
And
idea.
once we feed the ghosts what they feast on nightly, we can then move on with our night.
Mm-hmm.
And we encourage everybody out there to feed the ghosts if you see them, if you got them. Feed yourself some good scary stories by going to castleofspirits.com and reading from more than 4,600 true user-submitted, listener-submitted ghost stories dating back to 1997.
It's a fact.
That was an impressive segue on my part there.
It was pretty good. And if you have a story to tell, friends, don't be shy. Let's have them. So you can go to castleofspirits.com and find several ways that you can get in contact with us with your story. And remember, friends, If you're browsing around on the castleofspirits.com and the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's a ghost. You should run.